In 2001, Halo Combat Evolved launched to almost universal acclaim. The game sold unbelievably well and was a major contributor to sales of the entire Xbox platform. It played a key role in allowing Microsoft to become a significant player in the gaming hardware and software space, and spawned a franchise that has existed for more than 20 years, encompassing numerous sequels, tie-in novels, and even a television series. However, as the 21st century wears on, the Halo franchise finds itself struggling to maintain relevance in an increasingly dynamic and competitive landscape.
Halo is my favorite shooter. No, I don't mean Halo 1, I mean like Halo, the whole thing. Its vibe, its take on the shooter genre. I like the tanky feel of the player character. I like that you can win a fight even if the other guy got the drop on you. I like the maps that range from desert wasteland to lush jungle to barren wintry heath, to the colourful interiors of alien spaceships and the grey metal corridors within the ring. I love the mix of fun sci-fi weapons alongside contemporary hot lead throwers, the larger-than-life scope of a world on the back foot in a clash between spacefaring empires, all happening amongst the ruins of an alien civilization long since gone. I could go on ad nauseum. So I will! If you're curious, Halo 2 is my favorite, followed closely by Halo 1, then Reach, ODST, Infinite, and finally Halo 3. You might notice that 4 and 5 are totally absent from this list. I tried 4 but got bored within an hour or so. I thought it felt kinda lifeless and just sorta stopped playing. It wasn't terrible, but it sure didn't grab me, and after that experience I never bothered with 5. As far as I was concerned, I'd pretty much had enough. Halo had had a run of 5 mostly excellent shooters that all came together to tell a cohesive and well-rounded story, and I felt like I just didn't need more Halo. So when Infinite was announced, I never paid it much mind, happy to let those who liked 343's take on the franchise enjoy their latest shiny thing. But then it came out, and it was good. Holy shit, this is fun. There's a gun that harpoons things with a big metal spike. There's a grappling hook. There's this grunt that taunts you over a PA for almost the entire game. The sound design is great and the weapons look and feel amazing. You can sprint, you can do parkour. The open world is big and climbable, and it's really quite a gorgeous game. It's just nice to look at and pleasant to walk around in. Reviews called it a return to form for the franchise. Infinite was the first new Halo that I'd really cared for since Bungie handed the franchise off more than a decade ago. It wasn't perfect, but even the new story was pretty solid, something that, in my opinion, has been a weak point since 343 took over. The Banished, led by the larger-than-life Escharum, are suitably over-the-top and imposing for Halo bad guys, and in general, the story is pretty well told. The big seller was the gameplay though. Infinite has the best Halo gameplay to date, and it isn't even close, even though it really only makes a few small additions. Like every new Halo game, there's some cool new guns and whatnot, but the grappling hooks and the parkour are just cool and immediately steal the show, and Infinite deserves praise for implementing them extremely well. Being able to upgrade the grappling hook to electrocute enemies and deliver a special attack in particular was an inspired choice. The developers clearly took some notes from Doom 2016 with the new movement system and other little features like armor upgrades. but managed to implement what they learned without sacrificing Halo's own gameplay identity. These additions allow Infinite to feel much more hectic and fast-paced than previous Halo games, without sacrificing that tanky feel of being some kind of unholy hybrid of man and refrigerator. I would kill for a remake of the Bungie Halo games with this movement system.
It occurs to me that we have not been introduced. I, of course, know of you, Spartan. Your legend, the fear you inspire is admirable. The hope you stir in the hearts of your kind. Misplaced.
And that sentence should really clue you into some of my more complicated feelings about Infinite. As much as I like it, and let me be crystal clear about this, I do like it, it feels like it's missing something. It lacks an identity of its own within the Halo franchise. Any sequel will struggle to set itself apart from what came before, and Infinite is no different. This game begins with a battle above the ring, followed by a crash landing. You go about rescuing the Marines and doing story bits, and it's eventually revealed that it's more than just you and the Nock Covenant vying for control of the ring. And so now you have to contend with the extra secret Big Bad. Sound familiar? It's literally just Halo 1 again, right down to the badass pelican flying sidekick who steals the show. Fohammer would be proud at least. The story, even though it's fairly well executed, doesn't really alleviate the feeling that the franchise is just spinning in place, offering little besides the prospect of a series of unending and nearly identical wars with the same stakes. The supposedly vastly technologically superior forces of the Covenant, the Forerunners, the Banished, and now the Endless all begin to feel flat after a while, given that this is still Halo and you still solve all your problems with hot lead. Even its favorable placement on my list compared to Halo 3 is somewhat disingenuous. Halo 3 is really only a third of a game, with its story inextricably linked to the previous entries in the franchise, both of which I rank much higher than Infinite. I really only rate Infinite higher because I had so much fun zipping around on the grappling hook. Taken as a whole, Infinite cannot hope to compare with the story told across the 5 Bungie-led Halo games. And taken on its own, it serves to end the trilogy 343 created and kick off a whole new story of its own, leaving it without a beginning or an end or an identity of its own. Even the big new open world does little for the game. For starters, almost the entire map looks basically the same. It's a hilly woodland filled with trees and the occasional hole in the ground. You get to see pretty much everything this new ring world has to offer right from the main menu screen. Gone are the wildly varied biomes of the earlier games. No deserts, no arctic wastes, no dense jungle, just miles and miles of admittedly very pleasant woodland. Scattered across the map, in addition to all the trees, are missions both story and optional. The optional missions come in a few varieties: rescue Marines, destroy or capture banished bases, and fight optional bosses. It's hardly the stuff to revolutionize the Halo formula. Rescuing all the Marines does let you requisition more stuff at your own bases, but that can be a little game-breaking. I did all the optional missions I possibly could, and by about the midpoint of the game, I could just summon a tank whenever I felt like it. It certainly undermines the scrappy guerrilla warfare feel that is a hallmark of Halo. And because that's a feeling this game specifically wanted to invoke, it comes across all the more incongruent. In the end, this is just a mechanic without a major story purpose. It just is. The only real change from the analogous section of Halo 1 is now there's more busywork involved in rescuing all the Marines, and I guess free tanks. The optional bosses were a better idea, but they have a lot of unrealized potential. These guys are scattered across the map, and each one carries a special weapon, is known for some crime, and belongs to one of the races of the Banished. For example, there's the sniper jackal with a unique rifle, a pair of hunters who are brothers. There's even this badass grunt with a modified plasma pistol that when you charge it up, it's like a shotgun. If you kill them, you get the cool gun added to your inventory at the base. Unfortunately, beyond the novelty of the slightly unique weapon, these fights aren't much to write home about. None of them offer the player meaningful conversation or are even particularly unique or engaging to fight, mostly being full of the same enemies you fight elsewhere in the game. Only the boss is unique. These boss fights presented a fantastic opportunity to provide a face to the Banished, and to fill in some lore and generally give the faction some much needed character. And this opportunity was completely missed. Now, this might sound overly negative, but the reality is I really enjoyed playing through Halo Infinite. It's a pretty good game with wildly fun gameplay and a solidly presented, if a bit unoriginal story. But it's hard not to sound negative when it gives you so many reasons to discuss it, not for its inherent good quality, but for the multitude of missed opportunities that could have turned a good game into a truly great one. I don't think it's controversial to say the Halo franchise is struggling with a major stagnation period. Since the franchise was handed off to 343, neither Halo 4 or 5 have made major waves outside of the established fanbase, or even within it. Neither of those games ranks especially highly on many people's list of best Halo games, and it seems that 343 Industries are aware of this problem given Infinite's abandonment of the existing story, which is largely resolved off-screen, and ditching the numbered moniker. It indicates to me that 343 are seeking to rejuvenate the franchise by jettisoning some of its baggage, allowing to court new players and existing alike. But it seems that, like Halo 4 and 5 before it, Infinite has failed to gain significant ground outside the fandom or even within it, even in spite of its largely positive launch reception and many unambiguously good qualities. The sad fact is, Infinite is not the shot in the arm that could have saved the Halo franchise from that stagnation and catapulted it back into the forefront of the gaming landscape. Now, I hope it goes without saying that the title of this review is somewhat hyperbolic. Obviously, Halo Infinite sold pretty well, and I'm sure it raked in plenty of money for 343 and their overlords at Microsoft. Halo isn't going away anytime soon. However, the strong initial sales and generally positive reception is only half the picture. And I think to look at where Halo Infinite really failed, we need to turn our eye to the multiplayer component, and the market that component was gunning for. For the first time in the franchise's history, the multiplayer for Halo is completely free. You don't even need an Xbox Live subscription on the consoles. You can just download it and play online. 343 have embraced the live service model, offering continual content updates and patches and funding the game through Battle Pass subscriptions and cosmetic sales. It's the kind of model that has seen games like Apex Legends, Valorant, Destiny 2, and Call of Duty Warzone achieve incredible fortune and simultaneous player bases in the hundreds of thousands. This is the market Halo Infinite really had its sights set on. A seat at this table is obviously an extremely lucrative proposition, not just in terms of raw revenue and player base, but also in mindshare. Successful games in this space stay in the popular consciousness for years, are frequent features at esports events, and consistently streamed by thousands and watched by millions. This is where Halo Infinite wanted to be, and where it completely failed to end up. here is some data I find really interesting. If accurate, Microsoft claims that Halo Infinite is the most widely adopted Halo game to date, with upwards of 20 million people trying it out. I expect a large part of this is because the multiplayer is free, but nonetheless, it is an indicator that the game sold very well. However, the Master Chief's glorious return to screens after a 7-year absence shed 95% of its players in just 6 months. I'm not kidding. Since its debut on Steam, the player base dropped from a concurrent average of 102,000 and a peak of 256,000 to just 3,500 and 7,000 peak. That means that a little over 95% of this game's players stopped returning within 6 months. Now, I will grant that the Steam players may not be representative of Xbox players, but given that Microsoft and 343 have kept their mouths shut about the numbers on the Xbox platform, I can't imagine there's something to boast about. The Master Chief Collection, that's the bundle of remastered older Halo games, consistently pulls as many or more players, and hits like Apex Legends pull on average years after their release more than Infinite ever did, even at launch. So, why aren't people coming back to play Infinite? Well, if the reviews on the Xbox Store and on Steam are anything to go by, it unfortunately comes down to quite a few things. Limited features when compared to previous entries in the franchise, most notably the absence of co-op and Forge. Long wait times, limited custom game mode support, desync and stability issues, making fair matches hard to find and play, especially in ranked competitive games, intrusive monetization, and the lack of cosmetic customization for non-paying users. And, unfortunately for Infinite, all of these are totally valid complaints. Fighting an uphill battle because the game crashed for one of your teammates and now you're down a player is never fun. And to absolutely curb stomp the opponents because the same thing happened to them isn't either. The endless little reminders of what you could get if you fork out for a battle pass aren't fun. And the kill effects that are in effect a gloat from the paying to the non-paying are at best intrusive. And let's not forget the ethical hell that is loading your game with microtransactions and how those microtransactions are specifically designed to encourage unhealthy spending in the first place. Not playing with your friends because your game keeps crashing isn't fun. Waiting isn't fun, and oh boy do you do a lot of waiting in this game. The matchmaking times are atrocious and the estimated time for a game is as accurate as a Windows XP file transfer. It is so bad that I have been able to write whole paragraphs of this very script, including this one, in the multiplayer lobby while waiting for a game in quick play. The number of times I've sat there for minutes only to decide, fuck this, and mash Alt F4 and go get on with my day are too numerous to count. The absence of co-op and split screen means that you aren't playing with your friends who maybe don't care for Halo as much as you, and potentially introducing new players to the franchise. And Forge's absence means that creative types don't have anything to keep their interest, and so much of the cosmetic content being barred behind an intrusive paywall means that so many of those who really value character customization are turned away at the gate. Honestly speaking though, people are willing to put up with a fair bit of jank to play a game they like with their friends. I mean, PUBG managed to survive in its disastrous state for ages despite the graphical issues crashing and only having one map. Likewise, I wouldn't be surprised if Infinite could have survived some of its major flaws, for one key reason. It's still a hell of a lot of fun. Like I said, Infinite has the best Halo gameplay by a wide margin. But with all these factors, all these flaws working against it, especially the wait times and stability issues which still haven't been resolved almost a year later, I think it was just too much. Especially from a game with the resources of Microsoft and 343 behind it. And now with the announcement that 343 is curtailing promised features, the situation only spirals further. The way I see it, all of this has two knock-on effects. The first is obvious and immediate. For players, they get bored, quit, and eventually stop coming back just to have their time wasted. They don't want to invest their time in a game that is in this poor of a state and likely won't get better. The second is perhaps more niche, but still important. This game is unstreamable. I mean, think about it. What streamer in their right mind is going to play a game where they spend upwards of 50% of their times waiting for a match, crashing or just otherwise fucking about for a few bursts of admittedly brilliant moment-to-moment gameplay? God no. Who's gonna want to watch that? So this game is neither retaining players or staying in people's minds because content creators have moved on to better, bigger, and more stable things. Halo Infinite is the first time I have spent so much time in Halo multiplayer since playing an arseload of Halo Custom Edition back in high school. I genuinely love playing this game, and even I feel it wearing thin. If nothing is done, I can definitely see myself just dropping off one day and never coming back, even though I genuinely really love playing this game and have a lot of fond memories from single player and multiplayer alike. Unfortunately, my love of it cannot excuse its many and varied fundamental flaws, as much as I'd like it to. To me, the really big question hanging over this is, what will 343 do about it? Do they view the existing player base as too small to be worth investment and gradually curtail promised features and eventually drop the game in favor of their next big outing? Or will they knuckle down, build out the game's features, develop creative new content, and slowly win a place back in people's hearts and minds? A big relaunch event with the debut of Co-op and Forge might have provided an opportunity to present a kind of Halo Infinite 2.0. If they were smart and overhauled the weak and broken aspects of the multiplayer at the same time, I think there was a real opportunity to hook this game in people's minds once again. The engoodening of No Man's Sky and Final Fantasy XIV have shown what's possible when developers of a disastrous launch commit to winning back the hearts and minds of those excited for their games. Sadly, I don't think 343 is capable of that kind of commitment, a sentiment only reinforced by the aforementioned recent announcement that implementing co-op will be dropped in favor of furthering the live service aspects of the game. Content releases have come at a crawl, and now that the cancellations have begun, it's likely that beyond a few people keeping the lights on, this game will simply stagnate and die as fewer and fewer people come back and less of the studio's resources go into maintaining and growing it, until eventually the servers are shut down and nothing is left. Now, this all might sound a bit glib, and it is, but I seriously doubt Infinite is the end for Halo. Much of this game's positive reception owes to the lessons learned from Halos 4 and 5. Perhaps the next iteration of the franchise will be similarly fortunate and learn from the mistakes and failures of Infinite. Maybe next time, Halo will be the hit that 343 and Microsoft hope it will be. But until then, I don't know, maybe I'll try Overwatch 2.
Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped.
An ally's captured the zone.
Hello everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. For those of you who made it all the way through to the end, I really cannot thank you enough for that. If you liked it, maybe consider subscribing where I'll have more of whatever this was coming along soon. And if you really liked it and feel like supporting me, there is a link to my Patreon down below, but please only sign up if you can afford to. Extra special thanks to those of you who already have. It really does make such a difference to me. If you want to find me elsewhere, my socials are linked down below, so maybe I'll see you out there, but until then, take care and I'll see you in the next one.